What were a few of your favorite foods? Can you think of them? Do you still enjoy them? What smells remind you of childhood? There's a lot usually. Take a minute and really see if you can kind of capture a few of them. Are there any theme songs, jingles, commercials, or music which stands out? Extra credit if you sing it. Now let's reminisce a little bit about childhood. Childhood is next. So much like with infancy, with childhood, some people have lots of details, and for others it's quite blurry, right? There's a wonderful anonymous quote. No one knows who said it, but it's got a lot of home truths, I think. Whoever it was said, childhood is a little like being drunk. Everyone remembers everything you did but you. I think we can all identify with that a little bit. Now, you might be familiar with this. Sometimes you're listening to people's stories or memories about childhood and they either sound very different to yours or you don't quite remember that. Or sometimes these stories are sort of funny or fun or a little embarrassing. And a lot of times they're grounding, though, sort of reminding you of who you are and where you come from, right? Of course, some of them are a little bit less favorable, reminding you of who you are and where you come from. And I think that siblings, family members, lifelong friends, they're usually very good sources of these. Now, there's some science behind this quote, too, that we can think about, because the brain is actually still developing in childhood. And initially, we register memories implicitly, meaning our memories are first registered through our senses, through the feelings and the vibes. And then as we get a little bit older, that explicit memory comes on board, okay? And this is where we sort of develop that autobiographical memory and that chronological sense of memory, putting things in order, but it comes later. So, for example, first, it's the taste of ice cream, the feel of grass under my feet, and the sounds of the community pool that kind of remind me of summer, right? They give me a sort of a recollection of summer and maybe that feeling of excitement. And that's how we might remember summer, up to 7 or 8 even. And then gradually over time, it becomes, in the summer of 1972, I was 12. And this was the year that I stopped going to the community pool with my family. And actually I started riding bikes around with my friends. And the feeling was freedom. Okay? So you can see the difference there. And of course, I'm kind of cherry picking examples of good memories there, of course, right? Because it could equally sound like in the summer of 1972, we moved house and I lost all my friends and I didn't fit in for the next 2 or 3 years. And the feeling was loneliness, right? But you get a sense of the difference. Now, you always remember through the senses. Smell, for example, is a very powerful sense. But that explicit memory is when the mind is actually able to put things in order and tell a story, a narrative, okay? Now, another thing to consider is that our executive functioning, our self-regulation, the ability to manage emotions and things like that and not be too impulsive, and our problem-solving skills only just start to develop in childhood, right? And they're not actually finished till about 24, so well through adolescence and into early adulthood. So when we think about this, I suppose maybe we can be forgiven for some of those things that are in those less than favorable memories as well. Still, overall, childhood can probably best be captured in things like the foods we like to eat, right? Things that were a treat, the games that we played, the toys we played with, the sports or hobbies we loved. In childhood, it was easier for us to become excited by things and to be in the present moment, And if in this stage, we don't necessarily have a lot of control over our circumstances or the environment, what we do have, which is good, is the ability to get lost in a moment, to find games that we enjoy and play them to death, to savor small things, and to discover new stuff. There are many very real fears and anxieties in this stage, from things like monsters under the bed, to bullies, to punishment, to scary or damaged authority figures, or even those little smaller things, like if you remember back to the classroom, some kids were afraid of reading out loud, things like that. But there's also a wonder, an awe, a vivid imagination, and a capacity to play, right? Which can help us to get through. Now, this is also the stage when we leave home and enter school, which becomes a kind of almost alternative home place. So for better or worse, 6 to 7 hours of your day in childhood is spent in school for many years. So now with all of that in mind, here's a couple of questions for us to reminisce with. So, what were a few of your favorite foods? Can you think of them? Do you still enjoy them? What smells remind you of childhood? There's a lot usually. Take a minute and really see if you can kind of capture a few of them. Are there any theme songs, jingles, commercials, or music which stands out? Extra credit if you sing it. What was a game or hobby you couldn't wait to play, or that you looked forward to, or that you could play for hours? What were you into, right? Do you remember how much a bottle of soda, or a hamburger, or a pack of gum, or any other common food item cost when you were growing up? I actually asked a man this question once, and he said, he took a minute and he sat back. He said, no, not really. I can tell you how much a pack of cigarettes cost, though, because I started smoking when I was 9. And we shared a good laugh over that. And there was a lot in that, because he's really telling me is this was the origins of my later addictions. It kind of started this early. And really what we're both sort of communicating and understanding in that humor is, childhood ended early for him, right? But I think that the laughing and the humor in that was really, really good. Now, what stands out for you about being in school? What are the memories, the teachers, the friends, the stuff you did, even if you didn't like all of it? Okay. And what was something that you learned in school that stayed with you? So, a favorite subject, a special poem, a skill that you built upon later, right? That you might have had the early beginnings of in primary or grammar school. Can you think of a time when you discovered something that you were good at in childhood? How did you learn you were good at it? How did that come about? Was there something that you wanted to be good at, but just weren't? A lot of people discover this, I think, in childhood. There's things that they want to be or they really enjoy, but they realize, oh, I'm just not as good at that, as somebody else maybe. We kind of compare ourselves a little bit. Very normal. Where did you feel the safest or the most comfortable when you were young? And with whom? Okay. And what does it feel like to think about yourself as a child, to remember yourself as a child? Now, something else that we can do is you can bring to mind maybe an image or a specific memory that kind of captures you at this stage, or that captures the stage for you, right? So for example, you might think, okay, I can see myself in a baseball uniform. Maybe you played a lot of baseball in this period. Or I can see myself reading in a corner of the sitting room. That was kind of my cozy spot, and I love to read. Or I see myself doing my sister's hair, or I see myself walking up to the local shop. And again, what we're doing there is we're just finding a snapshot that kind of captures a lot, if that makes any sense. And it's nice to pause and just take a minute and think about that. Now, as always, if there's any particular kind of precious objects or things or stuff that capture elements of childhood, you can think about those or describe those too. Sometimes that's like a piece of clothing, a gift you were given, a specific toy. Objects hold a lot of memories. Okay, and here's a little mini challenge for you on this stage. Ask someone you know about what they remember from their childhood, okay? Ask them if they can remember a particular song or game or a brand of clothing, or, something that your parents wore during that period, some aspect of school or a specific food or something that was popular when you were younger. And what you'll notice is that just thinking about these basic things for some reason feels really good. And that's just enough of a reason to do it. And usually spark a really interesting conversation, a pleasant one, right? Okay, great. We scratched the surface of some of that childhood reminiscing. Well done. We move on to adolescence next.